If you're in your 40s and you're feeling like you're behind in life, behind financially, behind where you thought you'd be by now, this video is for you. Because somewhere along the way, many of us picked up an idea that success is supposed to look a certain way by a certain age. Married, kids, the white picket fence, financially stable, life is figured out, right? And if your life doesn't match that picture, it can feel like you missed something or you messed up. And I know because for a very long time, I believe that too. When I was younger, I actually thought by the time I reached my 40s that my life would look completely different. Today, I'm single, never married, no kids, and yes, I would love to be more financially stable, but here's the truth that took me so many years to understand is that from a personal and spiritual standpoint, my life is actually better. Not easier, not perfect, but clearer, more aligned with who God is shaping me to be. And I realized something that changed everything for me. So much of the pressure that we feel comes from comparing our lives to a standard that does not come from the Bible. It came from society. And so the world tells us that if we don't hit certain milestones by a certain age that we're behind. And that's just not true. God never operated on society's timeline. He's always worked on his own timing. And when you look at the scriptures closely, you'll notice something extremely powerful. God often does his most significant work later in life, not earlier, later in life, after waiting, after loss, after obscurity, after humility. And so let me show you what I mean by that. So let's start with Moses. Most people think of Moses as a confident leader standing before Pharaoh, but that wasn't when God called him. Moses was around 80 years old, 80 years old when God spoke to him from the burning bush. Moses had already lived 40 years in Egypt, 40 years in exile as a shepherd, and by the time God called him, Moses felt unqualified, insecure, out of place. He literally told God, "Who am I that I should go?" And yet, that's when God said, "Now you're ready." Moses wasn't late. Moses was prepared. And then we've got Abraham. God called Abraham at 75 years old and promised him a son. That promise didn't come to pass until Abraham was 100 and Sarah was 90. By every societal standard, okay, it was too late. But God intentionally waited so that the outcome would be clearly his doing. What looked impossible was actually strategic. And then I think about Joseph's story. Joseph's story reminds us that delay doesn't cancel destiny. Joseph had the gift early, but his calling unfolded later. He endured betrayal, injustice, and prison before stepping into leadership around age 30. The waiting wasn't wasted. It shaped his character to carry what God was about to entrust him with. And then there's Anna the prophetess. We don't hear about a lot Anna the prophetess. She was widowed early and spent decades praying, fasting, and waiting. And in her elder years, she recognized Jesus when others missed him. Her discernment didn't come from youth. It came from faithfulness over time. And so Paul's another story, another example is Paul's story might be one of the greatest examples of starting over. He was educated, he was respected, he was established, and then everything collapsed. And it was after his identity fell completely apart that God activated his true calling. Paul didn't lose his past. God repurposed it. Even Jesus himself didn't begin his public ministry until around 30. 30 years of preparation, 3 years of public impact, which tells us something powerful. Impact isn't about how early you start. It's about obedience. When God says now, So if you're in your 40s and you feel like you're starting over, trust me, I get it. Maybe you're not starting over. Maybe you're starting aligned. Maybe God waited until the noise died down so you could hear him clearly. Because if you're anything like me, I had so many different distractions that were keeping me from hearing God's voice. And so maybe what feels like delay is actually protection. And maybe this season, with all its clarity, honesty, and refinement, is the season that God can finally use you. The Bible tells us in Ecclesiastes, to everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. Not society's purpose, God's. So if God can call Moses at 80, fulfill promises for Sarah at 90, redirect Paul after a complete collapse, then your 40s are not a setback. They may be the beginning of your most intentional season yet. You are not behind, you are right on time. And if this resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Where did you think you'd be by now? And what is God inviting you to redefine in this season of life? And if you found encouragement here, be sure to join the email community so you can receive more faith-based encouragement. And I just want you to remember, you're not late, you're becoming. And I want you to also remember, if you're everything to everyone, then you risk being no one. You never know who you will inspire. See you in the next video. Have you ever looked at your life and thought, God, I thought I'd be farther along than this? Maybe you're single, maybe you're rebuilding, maybe life hasn't gone the way you planned. Let me remind you of a truth most people won't say out loud. Your life does not start when a relationship begins, your purpose doesn't wait on a ring, and your calling doesn't need permission from anyone but God. And that's exactly why I wrote How to Live an Extraordinary Life with or Without Mr. Right. This isn't another book telling you to sit still and wait. It's a roadmap for becoming the woman God created you to be. In your joy, in your purpose, in your gifts, in your confidence. Inside, you're going to learn how to hear God's voice above the noise, build a life that excites you, break free from comparison and timelines, and walk boldly, knowing you are already whole. You are not behind, you are not forgotten, you are becoming. Grab your copy today and let's build the extraordinary life God designed for you.